Welcome to Your Startup Community, where we unpack the messy magic of building entrepreneurial ecosystems. I'm Chris Heivly, former SVP of Ecosystem Development at Techstars, author of Build the Fort, the Startup Community Builder's Field Guide, a longtime blogger and speaker about founders, startups, and startup communities, and your host. I've worked with hundreds of ecosystems enthusiasts across 20 plus countries and helped grow cities from meh to magnetic. In this podcast, we'll walk the talk. No hype, no fluff, just practical insights to help you and your startup community grow. So let's dive in. Hey everyone, and welcome to the first episode in a long anticipated season 2 of the Your Startup Community podcast. It's been a few years since season 1 and our 8 terrific episodes. This year, we're changing things up and going for a simple but consistent way for you all to think about startup communities and ecosystems. Thanks in advance for listening. Today, we're going back to the basics and diving into one of the most essential questions for anyone building something in the startup world. And that is, what exactly is a startup community and why is it important? Now, you might think it's all tech bros in hoodies and coffee shops with exposed brick walls, but the truth is, startup communities are way more layered, nuanced, human, and actually more powerful than that. So grab your coffee or that half-warm LaCroix and let's dig in. Let's start by stepping back and asking this very meta question: what is a startup community? At its most basic level, a community is a group of people connected by something shared. That might be a place, like a neighborhood, a town, or a building. It could be an interest, a love for vintage clothing, sourdough bread, or yes, startups. And sometimes it's a belief system, and sometimes it's an organization. But the kind of community we care about and why you're listening to me now is more than shared geography or interests. It's felt. It's a sense of belonging. It's when you show up and people know your name, not because it's on a name tag, but because they've seen you. You matter. Your presence has weight, and you have connection. Let me put it like this. A community is built on 4 key ingredients: connection, trust, shared norms, and contribution. Let me break that down for you. Connection is the glue. It's the you too moment. It's when you realize that you're not alone. You look around and see others that are on the same journey as you. The right meetups create these connection opportunities. It may not be obvious, but when it clicks, it clicks. Trust is where things go deeper. You can't have a real community without trust. That means believing people have good intentions, that they'll show up, that if you stumble, someone will catch you, or at least ask if you're okay. This is really hard in new communities. Shared norms. Not rules, but norms, as in that culture thing. A community develops its own vibe, its own behaviors, its own little rituals. In a startup community, this might mean always asking how I can help before pitching your own thing. It should mean that everyone is welcomed and embraced. Good norms make for good community. And lastly, contribution. Here's the secret sauce. You just don't take. You give. You lend a hand, an ear, or a warm intro. We call that give first. It's not a transaction. And the wild thing is, over time, that contribution turns into a norm. And now you're not just in the community, you are the community. Now, here's something I've seen firsthand. People don't join a community just because it's there. They join because they feel invited, and they stay because they feel useful. That's true whether you're talking about a book club or an innovation ecosystem. So when we ask, what is a startup community? We've got to remember it's not a list of people. It's a living, breathing network of folks who trust, support, and show up for each other. And just like any community, it's fragile. It takes time to build, and it can be broken with ego or apathy. But when it's real, when it's honest, it's one of the most powerful forces in the entrepreneurial world. Now that we've unpacked what a real community looks like, let's get into how this plays out in the startup world. You've probably heard people talk about the startup scene in a city. They point to a few co working spaces and maybe a successful exit and their rock star founder, or an annual pitch competition with some amazing local sponsors. That's the scene. And hey, scenes are fine. Scenes have their place. They draw attention, they attract media, and sometimes the scene even lands a few headlines. But a scene, it's surface level. It's not the foundation that lies underneath. Scene people show up to see the community, not to actually serve the community. And that's okay. No judgment. I'm happy they showed up because that's part of the deal. But now contrast that with a startup community. A community isn't built around events, it's built around relationships. It's the founder who texts you back after a bad pitch. It's the investor who says, "You're too early for me, but let me connect you with someone else." It's the mentor who's got office hours and time for a real conversation. A startup community is a living organism. It's built on intentional relationships, not transactions. And it's where people know your story, not just your LinkedIn bio. In short, a scene is something people watch. A community is something people belong to. So, who makes up this startup community? Well, let's walk through some key roles. And frankly, they're more diverse than you might think. Let's start with the obvious one: founders. Founders are the engine. Without them, there's no product, no company, no growth, no momentum, and no community. The best communities are founder centric, not because founders are perfect in any way, but because they're the ones doing the work. No founders, no startups. No startups, no community. It's actually pretty simple. But founders can't do it alone. Now we have mentors. They come in all shapes and sizes and serve in small to large ways. These are the wise folks who've walked the road before. Some are formal advisors, others are just generous with their time and stories. In great communities, mentors are available and easy to connect to. They listen, they challenge, and they care. Investors. Good investors do more than write checks. They shape behavior. Their accessibility, or lack thereof, sends powerful signals. In vibrant communities, investors show up early, give honest feedback, and open doors even when they say no. Many great investors are also great mentors. Conveners. This includes folks running accelerators and incubators and meetups and those co working spaces. They plan events, create the rhythms, and make space for others to collide in productive ways. I like to say they're the architects of serendipity and connection. And lastly, community builders. These are the unsung heroes, the people who introduce founders, tell their stories, and send that just checking in email at the right moment. Their work is often invisible, but their impact can be massive. So, if those are some of the people that make up a startup community, Chris, are there any roles that are not part of the startup community? Well, yes, but not how you might think. Feld and Hathaway in the Startup Community Way outline that there is a startup community and there is an entrepreneurial ecosystem. All members of the community are part of the ecosystem, but not all members of the ecosystem are part of the community. More on this in a future episode. This part can maybe feel a little uncomfortable, and let's be honest, not everyone who hangs around is actually part of the community. Just because someone works in tech or attends a few meetups doesn't automatically make them part of the community. A great example are corporate and civic leaders. They're not always in the trenches, but their support still matters. They have a role to play in the ecosystem, but they also have fairly large day jobs, which prevent them from being 100% part of the community per se. In the best communities, these people listen before they lead. They help build infrastructure, not necessarily headlines. These are folks who orbit the startup world, but never truly connect. And maybe they only appear when the cameras are around, or they gatekeep their networks, or they make founders feel like they have to prove themselves just to earn a conversation. I sometimes call them bad actors. But a healthy community doesn't have room for that kind of behavior. If you want to be part of the community, you need to engage. You need to care, and you need to give first, a core value that separates thriving communities from performative ones. So, what makes a startup community really special? Well, it's not the unicorns or the exits or the number of startup weekends. Those are nice, but they're not the soul of it. Here's a few things that really sets the best communities apart. One, it's relational, not transactional. You're not just a pitch deck, you're a person. A startup community that gets it leads with relationships, not resumes. Two, it's proactively inclusive. Great communities don't just open the door, they invite people in. They seek out voices that haven't been heard. They make space at the table, and they don't wait for permission to include. Three, a great community is built on small wins. Forget those silver bullets. The best communities stack tiny victories, one coffee, one intro, one shared story at a time. And over years, that storytelling momentum turns into something unstoppable. Four, a great community tells its own story. Celebrating local wins is oxygen for a community. If no one's telling the story of the founders, the wins, the grit, and the growth, who will? Narratives shape identity. Tell yours. A startup community is the sum total of all of its founder stories. Five, it's based on shared norms. Every healthy startup community I've seen has unspoken rules. Help before asking, be kind but honest, celebrate the small stuff, and never ever gatekeep. These norms build trust and fast. And six, a great startup community evolves, but doesn't chase the hype. Communities grow and shift. New people arrive, the old guard steps back, but the special ones don't lose their soul trying to look like some other supposed hot community. They stay grounded in their place, their people, and their pace. So, why does this all matter? Well, a startup community is more important today than ever because entrepreneurship has become one of the most powerful tools for job creation and local economic growth. I know you all believe that, or you'd not be listening, but startups don't grow in isolation. They need a community and an ecosystem of support, energy, and connection to thrive. I say all the time that great ideas come from great founders, and great founders typically come from great communities. At its core, a startup community creates a space where founders can feel seen, supported, and surrounded by others who get it. The road of building something new is unpredictable, and a strong community reduces the friction that founders face by offering mentorship, access to networks, emotional support, and practical know how. In today's world, where new problems emerge daily, we need entrepreneurs who are bold enough to take risks and fast enough to find solutions. A startup community provides the social infrastructure that fuels that risk taking, where one founder's lesson becomes another's shortcut. And it's about place. Not every city is going to birth the next unicorn, but every city can build a sustainable, inclusive startup community that encourages local talent to stay, try, and build. Communities that invest in entrepreneurs now are creating future jobs, wealth, and individual confidence that stays rooted in their region. Look, startup life is hard. It's chaotic, confusing, and often isolating. But a great community, now that's the antidote. When you find or build a community that sees you, supports you, and shows up with you, everything changes. You move faster, you fall softer, and you celebrate louder. So if you're listening today wondering, where do I start? Well, start with showing up. Go to that meetup. Offer help before you ask for it. Tell someone they're doing a great job. And for the love of all things startup, share their story with someone else. That's how we build. That's how we belong. And that's how we turn our city into something that actually matters. Thanks for listening to Your Startup Community. And until next time. Thanks for listening to this week's deep dive into the art and science of startup community building. If you liked what you heard, subscribe, share, and maybe even shout it from your rooftop co-working space. You can also catch my weekly blog on the Techstars blog under POV. Until next time, keep showing up, build those connections, and as always, give first.